Okay, tonight we're going to talk about the trails there at Guana. And Guana goes under a couple of different names, and we'll see what all that's about. But we'll take a look at these trails and take a hike. So this area is really the Guana Tolomato Matanzas National Estuarine Research Reserve. So they do research. We'll talk a little bit about the history of the area, the wildlife, the beautiful trails. It's got some beaches. Some beaches you can swim at, some you can't. There's an environmental education center, which is closed right now due to COVID. But you're just seeing some pictures from different places around there as I talk. So we'll talk today about where this Guana place is, what it is, a little bit about the history. We'll take a good look at the trails, and we'll take some hikes. In fact, we'll hike just about everything. So the GTM NER, it really has two sections. There's a north section that has the 3 beach access points that you might be familiar with along A1A. There's a 6-mile landing boat ramp up about here. And then it's the Guana Peninsula. So the Guana Peninsula includes both the area we'll be hiking and a wildlife management area that's north of where we'll be hiking. There's also a southern section that is also used for research and conservation, and that includes it's kind of a stamp, an overlay over all these areas that you see listed here. Some of those places we've done some hiking in, Princess Place Preserve, Washington Oaks, and so forth. But we'll be looking at the Guana Peninsula here in the north section. So this is a look at the peninsula. Just to get you oriented, A1A is right along here. So if you're coming from Jack's, you drive by all the 3 beach accesses, and then you'll see a sign to turn right to come into the area. The Environmental Education Center is here on the left. Like I say, that's closed now because of COVID. You drive a little further, there's a gate, $3 admission to get into the area. I always buy an annual pass. I think it's 50-some bucks, and I can use that at the 3 beach accesses, and I can use it to get into Guana, so it's worth it. Once you come past the gate, there's a restroom here on the right, and right near the restroom is a small little kayak rental area, and you can launch off the beach here into Guana Lake. There's also a boat ramp this way that you can launch into the Guana River to go down that way. This dam area is usually pretty full of folks fishing. You fish in Guana Lake, they throw nets for bait, or they do fishing. So there's a lot of people there lined up doing fishing right there. To get the trailhead, you drive over the dam and down to a parking area down here and right here, and that's where the trailhead is. I think we'll talk a little bit more about the trails in a second, but I do want to point out we've got a couple of different hammock systems here. We got freshwater marsh that runs kind of through the center of the peninsula. It runs down here and probably peters out down about this area. Up in this area and up in the wildlife management, we got pine flatwoods. It's mostly maritime hammock in here, large oak trees, and that sort of thing. And then, of course, we got salt marsh around the outside. A little bit about the history. People arrived in Florida at least 10,000 years ago, and there was a group of people that were called the Shell Ring people by the Timucua, who were the indigenous people who were here when the Spanish arrived. They call them the Shell Ring people because they built these large shell rings. There's the remnants of one up here in the wildlife management area, about 800 feet across. This ring sometimes was anywhere from 3 to 4 meters high. You see rings like this are all around the East Coast or southern East Coast. There's another big one that we talked about a few weeks ago at Fort George Island. And they believe it was done for ceremonial reasons. Lots of them usually in a U shape like this, with the U facing basically south. And those were built anywhere around 3,000, 3,500 BC. We don't know much about it. We don't know anything about the people that did this. We haven't been able to find much about them. Before the Spanish arrived, the Timucua occupied this area, and a large area in northeast Florida, and stretching all the way into probably central and almost to the Panhandle in the north of Florida. They arrived 500 to 1000 AD. Not sure where they came from, although there's evidence that their language and some of their customs are Central American or came from Mexico. So it could be that indigenous people from there came into Florida. It was about maybe 2.5 generations after the Spanish got here, the entire Timucua civilization was wiped out due to disease and ill treatment. But they did have some extensive villages in the Guana area. This is a burial mound that we'll talk a little bit about later. The Spanish came down, and wherever they found the Timucua villages, they built a mission. And there was a mission here, right near that burial mound, right in the middle of the peninsula, right near one of the trails that we're going to hike on. And they did that to convert the Indians and to enslave them to some degree, and just kind of run their life from there. They were destroyed around 1700 when the British came down from the colonies and tried to take over Florida. The first thing they did is destroy all the missions. But about 1760, the Grant Plantation was built on the peninsula, mainly growing indigo for blue dye. And that died out after 10 or 15 years. The land just kind of sat. We do know that there was one farm that was built near Shell Bluff. I'll show you where that is in the 1780s. There's an old well left over from that. Then the land remained kind of relatively undeveloped. Trees grew back. Of course, it was pretty much stripped for the indigo plantation, but trees grew back, and it just kind of sat there relatively undeveloped. 1957, Fish and Wildlife built the Guana Dam that you see, and the purpose of that was just to dam up that Guana River to help it with waterfowl and draw more waterfowl. The state bought the land from Gate Petroleum in the early 80s, and it was a state park for a while, and then got folded into the National Estuarine Research Reserve in 2004. So that's a brief history. All right, let's take a look at the peninsula itself and the trails. Again, we're right here at the parking lot. You can see there's a yellow trail that runs straight across the peninsula and out to Shell Bluff. That's where that well is I was talking about. And that's a little over a mile to go out there. Lots of times people just hike out there. They're overlooking the Intercoastal Waterway, and it's a pretty view out there, pretty shells. We'll see that a little later. So that's one hike you can do. The other one is an Orange Loop trail that runs up here on the north side, and that's 1.7 miles. We'll do part of that. We're going to do the orange and then hop over on the blue and out that way. There's just the blue trail. You can get to it from the orange trail or from the yellow trail that runs across. And then there's two longer loops here that are about 1.7 mile or 2.7 miles each, the purple loop and the red loop. And if we hike all of that, like if we take the yellow and then go all the way down like we're going to do tonight, that's a little over 6 miles. The burial mound and the mission were located right in this area. And we'll take a look at that when we hike down there. So this is a look at the dam area, just kind of a quick pan. This was on Labor Day, so maybe there was a few more people there than you normally see. And we're looking over here. This is the Guana Peninsula over here. And straight across the dam and down this road is where you go to get to the trailhead. So you can see where that car is way down there. That's where you park for the trailhead. I say restrooms when they're open. Restrooms aren't open right now. I don't know whether it's maintenance or COVID or what, but there is a couple of outhouses around down there. This is a trailhead. There's a nice gazebo with picnic tables. Normally restrooms, although those were locked the last time I was there. A kiosk, and you can usually find a map here that somebody will take one and then leave one. Sometimes you'll find a map there. And there's a small little trail back behind the gazebo. Oh, maybe an eighth of a mile, 100, 200 yards or something like that, that's paved. So if you got somebody with wheels, wheelchair, something like that, you can go back there to that trail. Also located there is the famous spring break wreck. This washed up at Ponte Vedra Beach a couple of years ago in March, which is why it's called the spring break wreck. And they could tell from the hull, the way it was built and the type of wood used, that it was probably a hull of a merchant ship built in the probably mid-1800s and built in the South, because it was mostly southern wood that was used. So sat on the beach for a little while, and then they decided to move it over here where it would be a little safer. So, and there's a little info sheet about that right there at the parking lot. So like I say, the first hike we're going to do is we'll do the Orange Trail. So we'll hike up this way, around the loop, over this freshwater marsh area, back around. Then we're going to take the Blue Trail out the Shell, and then the Yellow Trail out to Shell Point, and then we'll come back, and then we'll be ready to do our next hike. So this hike's here about 3 miles. If that's too much for you, you can always just do the Orange Trail and come back, or like I said, just do the Yellow Trail out and back. So you've got a number of options there, and you'll see that the trails are well marked and it's easy to get around. So we're looking now at a kiosk that's right past the parking lot, and we're walking down toward the Shell Mountains. So we're walking down pretty much west. This is a big intersection here. If we go straight, that's the Yellow Trail to the Shell Point. We go right, that's the Orange Trail. We go left, it's the Purple Trail. All the intersections are well marked. There's a yellow diamond saying going straight, orange going right, purple going left, and a map. So it's usually pretty easy. Also, you'll find, surprise, surprise, that the benches are color-coded. So when you come to benches along the way, they're color-coded for the color of the trail too, so that's nice. So we've turned right, and we're going up this way. If you look down here at the bottom of the thing, we're going up this way, and we're at this intersection. There's a map there. It tells us which way to go, so we're right there. That's just about a quarter of a mile. Now we'll head on down. This bridge goes over that inland freshwater marsh that you're seeing there, quite pretty. There's a couple of bridges you go across. Now we're at this intersection with the Blue Trail. So if you wanted to just take the Orange Trail and then take the Blue Trail, you can do that. You can see blues to the left, orange is straight. This gray marker tells you that there's a trail that leads into the wildlife management area. And there's a couple of those along here, but I found those locked, and I don't even know if they're usable anymore. We'll talk a little bit more about how to get into the wildlife management area, but right now you can't get in there from those trails. So we'll head straight on down the Orange Trail from here. Quite pretty, huh? Trails are wide, easy to find. We get to this We get to about here. Let me go back one. Let's run this again. You'll come to this little sign that says bench. And if you turn there, there's just a little bench down there, but right to the left, kind of right in front of you, is another burial mound or ceremonial mound of some type. You can't see it very well because it's overgrown at this point, but you can see this mound here. It's probably a burial mound. So now let's see, we're going to the same thing again, okay? Now we're up here at the top. See another one of those gray ones going to the right to the wildlife management area. Again, it's locked. So the orange says go left, so that's what we'll do. Now we're turning, we're coming back down this way. We're at this point. We've walked down here. We're at this intersection again with the blue trail. If you want to just take the orange trail, it's a slight left back to go back to the trailhead. We're going to go right and take the blue trail over to the yellow trail. Now we're coming up to the intersection of the yellow trail, yellow bench, just in case we didn't realize it. And then we just turn right and we're almost right at the intercoastal. You can see right through that opening there that's where the intercoastal is, and that's where Shell Bluff is. So let's go down and take a look at that. So we're looking over the intercoastal or Tolomato River. We're looking west right now. Across, that's Phillips Highway going down to St. Augustine over there on the other side. There's that old well. We'll take a little closer look at that in a minute. There's the old well from Andrew's farm. It's almost getting underwater. The water's rising in the intercoastal, and it's about ready to take over the well. But so that well's was built in the 1780s, so that's about 250 years old. Take one more look around Shell Bluff. Saw some people out here picnicking and kids running around the beach. One more look. Very pretty, very open here, very nice. Salt marsh over here. We're looking, on both these pictures, we're looking south. We'll be hiking down through this area on the purple and red trail. So now we head back to the parking lot. So we're coming back on the yellow trail, back to the parking lot. There's the intersection, parking lots right down there. So now we're here, and let's say you want to do a little longer hike. Let's take a look at the purple trail, and then we'll hook onto the red trail, look at the end of the peninsula, and then come back. So this is a long one. If you don't want to do it all, you can just do the purple trail, and you can see the burial mound there, and then just come back up. But we'll take a look at all of them. So we're going to start at the trailhead. Now we're walking up the yellow trail. Now we're at the intersection. The yellow trail goes straight ahead, purple goes to the left. And so we'll just take this loop counterclockwise. That's another look at it. If we go to the right, that's back down to Shell Bluff. We go to the left, then we're going to take the purple trail down this way. Beautiful, beautiful maritime hammock in here. Beautiful live oak. We'll cross some areas where we cross a little mound with some shells. That was probably part of a shell ring or a place where the indigenous people of Timucua process oysters, like here. But when you come across a little mound with shells, you can always remember that oysters didn't walk there themselves. So that's probably there's another one, probably signs of Timucua processing. So we've hiked down to the purple trail to the end, and we're right here at the intersection with the red trail, which goes the purple trail goes that way, the red trail goes straight ahead. You see the red bench. So we're right down here. We might as well take the red trail down to the end of the peninsula. So that way to the left would be just the purple trail if you wanted to take it, or to the right if you want to do the other 2.7 mile loop down to the right. Got a lot, pretty good views of the Tolomato River, intercoastal going this way. Then we get down to the end. There's a little trail that goes actually down to the beach area at the very end of the peninsula. And it's pretty down there. And this is probably how the Spanish came in most of the time, coming up from St. Augustine, and they would come to this point and get on the peninsula from there. So then it's just a matter of coming back up off the beach trail, and then just taking the red trail back up. You can see trails are wide, clean, easy to follow. A couple other places where there's shells, like you saw there. And now we're coming up to the intersection. Now we're coming up to this point. You see there's a sign. This area that we're looking at right now was probably pretty much the center of the Timucuan village in this area. And where we're looking right now is probably about where that mission was built, although there's no remnants of it now. But they always built those missions right in the middle of the village. And then to the left here is that burial mound. And it's been fenced for some time. It's pretty easy for that thing to fall apart. It's not very firm. They built a fence to keep humans and hogs out of it who were digging holes in it. So they've kept that out. And it's called the Sanchez Mound. The mission here was the Tolomato mission. Now, it used to be that they would clear this mound off. And I can remember when I did hikes down here, it would look like this. But now the prevailing thought is to let them go, let them get covered, let the natural vegetation take over, with less chance of people coming in and messing around with them and that sort of thing. Now, this Sanchez Mound was excavated by an amateur archaeologist in 1878. They found several precious stones and several burial bundles. And those were removed, and they're in some obscure museum in New York City now. And I think the state of Florida is trying to get them back, but they haven't had any luck so far. And then there's been no further excavation of that mound after that. So now it's just a matter of finishing our hike up by going back up the purple trail. We'll see a couple places where canals were dug by enslaved people to drain this area, that freshwater that freshwater marsh that was run through to drain that. for the indigo plantation. So there's still remnants of that. So now we're back, trailhead's down there, and we're back up here. So we've done quite a few hikes here. Let's see, we've probably hiked about 9 or 10 miles so far. It's only been 28 minutes. So let's take a look at what you can do. We went up to the Orange Trail, went around, saw that hidden burial mound right there at the bench sign, came back around, took the blue trail out to Shell Point. That was nice. Then came back. Then we went back out. I always like to go this way so that when I finish this long hike, I'm close to the parking lot. So I always go counterclockwise. We went down the purple trail to the red trail intersection, down here, messed around out there on the Shell Point down there, and then came back up. We saw several remnants coming back up of shells that could possibly have been either part of a shell ring or a shell mound, or maybe just where they processed oysters right along the trail here. Here was the Sanchez Mound right here. The mission probably built somewhere in this area. We don't know exactly where, but this was probably the center of their civilization. And we did see a couple of shell mounds coming down the purple trail on this way too that we passed over. Then we went back up. Right in this area, if we looked to our left, we saw some places where enslaved people had dug canals to try to drain this area for better indigo farming, and then back up and back to the parking lot. So that's what we did. I want to talk a little bit about the wildlife management area. If you take the Orange Trail up past where we turned off to the fence, you enter the wildlife management area. And there's a couple interesting things you can do here. You can hike a short hike out here to Capo Tower, and I believe there's signs and stuff to see that. But if you go to that tower, you climb maybe 20 feet, and it's a beautiful view out here over the salt marsh and the intercoastal waterway, Tolomato River. It's real pretty just to go up to there and back. I haven't hiked that far up this way. This is sandy, kind of open, and not near as pretty as hiking down through the woods in the southern part. But this is 10 miles long, and you can go up there as far as you want. By the way, you can use bikes on these trails, and so you could always bike up here. But like I say, it's loose and sandy, so you better bring your thigh muscles. This is where that shell ring is located, but that's probably about a 4-mile walk up to get to that. And you really can't see much, but you can see where it was. There's also a viewing tower right here that looks out over Guana Lake or Lake Ponte Vedra, whatever. It's always marked as different names right in here. And of course, this is A1A running along here. And there's a kayak launch point there too. We've kayaked from 6 Mile Landing before. We come down A1A and we've kayaked out of here and back a couple times. But I've always found it kind of tough kayaking in here. It's you never know where the sandbars are, and sometimes you can get stuck. And this place is full of gators, just full of gators. So that's either good or bad, depending on what you're looking for. But if you want to go into wildlife management area, going over here to Capo Tower would be a nice trip. So that takes care of what we're going to talk about. We've got